الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه الكريم إن الذين توفاهم الملائكة ظالمي أنفسهم قالوا فيما كنتم قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها فأولئك مأواهم جهنم وساءت مصيرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, in this verse that I recited, talks about people in the dunya that could not practice their religion, that could not follow the real path, the path of Islam, and they could not implement Allah's laws and guidance into their own lives. Why? Because of situations and the place they were living and the time they were living at. They didn't have freedom. They were oppressed maybe by the government, or the circumstances that they lived in. They could not practice their religion or show their faith in God, in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when they die, the Quran says that these people die without showing their faith or having faith in God or practicing the true faith. And the angels tell them after their death, why didn't you follow the right path of God? They would answer, we were oppressed, we could not. Where we lived, the situations were harsh on us, and being religious and faithful was difficult. The angels answer them, wasn't Allah's land and earth big enough for you? Didn't have any enough space that you could go to somewhere else? Was God's land only the place that you were born in and you were living? You could have migrated to another place, to another city, to another country, another land where you could have expressed your faith and your religion and practiced it as you are told. So then they tell them, then go, your place is in the hellfire, because that is not an excuse. If you cannot practice your faith in your own country and you are able to go to somewhere else, another country, then that is what you have to do. Like for instance, in the time of Saddam Hussein, you see many Shia couldn't practice their faith. Some could, some couldn't, some were under pressure. Those who couldn't, and they would lose their faith, they had to migrate and go to somewhere else, go other country, where they could practice their faith and keep what they have. Or you see some Shia, they live in areas where you find many enemies of Ahlul Bayt and their followers, and they live in fear and terror, and they cannot announce or practice the Shia faith. So they do taqiyya, intense and very harsh taqiyya, in a way that the children, they will not learn that they are Shia and followers of Ahlul Bayt. I knew a family in Iraq. One of them, they were living in Canada, and one of them was he was telling me that my cousins, I have two cousins, they're Shia. I have two cousins, they lived in Tikrit. Their family was Shia. But because of the circumstances of that place in Iraq, where it was the birthplace of Saddam Hussein, Tikrit. He said that one of my cousins is in the Hashd al-Sha'bi, those who are defending Iraq and fighting ISIS, and the other, his brother is in ISIS, fighting his other brother. One brother is in ISIS, the other is in Hashd al-Sha'bi, fighting ISIS. So you could see in one family that one of them has gone and has that terrorist mentality because of growing, because of the friends he has, because of the environment he lives in. Why do you have to live in that environment and do taqiyya in a way that your children will not know their own faith? That is not okay. Because when you reach a limit that you cannot keep your faith, then that is when you have to go to somewhere else. You have to migrate or go to be a refugee at another country. You cannot stay in that place anymore. Because the most important thing in your life is your faith. Because that determines where you will go after death. Either it's paradise or it is hell. So the Quran says Allah's lands are wasi'. You could go anywhere you please to express your faith. So we, followers of Ahlul Bayt and Muslims living in these countries, the first thing we have to do is that we have to keep our faith. قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِيكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourself and your family from the hellfire. This is your priority. It's not about your job, your money, and your wealth. Providing. The first thing you have to provide for your family is their aqeedah and faith and their religion. Because if you cannot do that, then you have lost everything. You will maybe have dunya in this world, but what is important, what we have been created for, is the akhirah, the hereafter. But you're thinking about how can I have a better life, and you don't think about the consequences sometimes. So some of us, we just want to have a better life, and we don't think what the price is, what the expense is sometimes. But we try, and we have done a good job, many of us. We live in these countries, and we have accomplished, alhamdulillah, keeping our faith through these places like this center, where we practice our faith, we teach our children and family, and we find good friends for them, a good environment, and this helps a lot. But is that enough? Is that our sole responsibility? Or there is more than that is expected from us? A man came to Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. After 13 nights, that's the first time you recite salawat after one of the imams. And I'm happy about it because it helps a lot. So please recite another salawat. He asks the imam that I am a merchant and I go to Bilad al-Kufr, the countries of non-Muslims and non-believers like the Roman Empire. And when I go there and come back, I spend a lot of time there sometimes, and when I come back, you know what the Muslims tell me here in this land? They tell me that if you die in those lands, in the countries of the non-believers, you will die as a non-believer. And you will be تُحْشَرُ مَعَهُمْ. You will be resurrected as a non-believer because you have died in their lands. Is this true? He asks the imam. If I die in their land, will I be one of them on the day of judgment when all the human beings, they are resurrected? The imam, he asks him a question. And in that question, he is giving us the condition, the law, and how it is okay to live in this country. He says, إِذَا كُنْتَ ثَمَّ تَذْكُرُ أَمْرَنَا وَتَدْعُو إِلَيْهِ. If you live in the countries of non-Muslims, do you mention our cause and do you call and invite people to our cause? What is the cause of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam? It's faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Prophet, and the Imams, it's faith, it's religion, it's the ideology. He says, do you call and invite and mention our cause? Sallallahu alayhi wa He says, yes, na'am, I do that. I talk about our faith very much with the non-believers. And the Imam then asks him, well, when you're in your own country, those who go back to their country and say, we feel better here because we are doing service to the Muslim community than we do in our own country. We are more religious in these countries than we are in our own country. The Imam asks Hamad, he says, when you go back to your own country, تَدْعُو إِلَىٰ أَمْرِنَا, do you call and invite people to our cause? He says, no, over there, I don't. It seems that he was doing taqiyya. I mean, he couldn't express his faith in that sense. The Imam said that being in that country is better than being in your own country. And he said, إِنَّكَ إِن مِتَّ ثَمَّ, if you die in that land of kufr, تُحْشَرُ أُمَّةً وَحْدَكَ وَيَسْعَى نُورُكَ بَيْنَ يَدَيْكَ. If you die in that land, you will be resurrected as a nation by yourself, and your light, illumination will be seen in all the day of judgment, and everyone will see your nur and illumination on that day. So the Imam says, if you invite people to our cause, then living in that country is much better than living in your own country. And when you can't do anything in your own country, and you've all heard the hadith of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, where he says to his Shia, Rahimallahu abdan ahya amrana. May Allah have mercy on a servant, a God servant, who revives our cause. Ihya amrina, revives the cause of Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Then one of the companions, he asks, وَكَيْفَ يُحْيَا أَمْرُكُمْ, how can we revive your cause? The Imam says, يَتَعَلَّمْ عُلُومَنَا وَيُعَلِّمُهَا النَّاسِ, to learn our knowledge, our words of wisdom, and teach them to people. Any people, either Muslim, or those who don't follow Ahlul Bayt, or no, if they're not even Muslim. If you learn the words and teachings of Ahlul Bayt and the Prophet and teach them to others, non-believers, those who don't know these teachings, then you have revived the cause of the Imam. And the Imam says, Rahimallahu amdan ahya amrana. May Allah have mercy on that person. So, then the Imam says, فَإِنَّ النَّاسِ لَوْ عَلِمُوا مَحَاسِنَ كَلَامِنَا لَاتَّبَعُونَا. If people knew the beauty and wisdom of our words and teachings, they will follow us, for sure. If they knew the beauty and how our teachings will benefit them in life, they will follow the path, the right path of God and the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. What is the teachings of the Prophet? I mean, we can't count them, there's so much. But the things in these countries, what are things that people don't know about our religion and our faith and our Prophet and our Imam? Those are the things that will drive people to want to know more and to follow the path, the right path. Those who are seeking the truth, they will follow this path. If they What do they know about the Prophet? They know nothing, but he was a warlord that would wage wars against other tribes and countries. They know nothing about the Prophet, that he shed blood, he killed so many people. I mean, that's what the Islamophobia is teaching them in these countries. And what do we do to defend the Prophet? What do they know about Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam Ali, our first Imam? They all know he was a brave warrior that had killed so many people. And that's the only thing they have heard. That's what the media shows. And it's not something new. It was hundreds of years ago. The Christians in Europe believed in these. This is what the Islamophobia isn't something new. It was from old days. You know, you've heard of Dante, the person, his book, Divine Comedy, where he writes about the three stages of afterlife, the three places, the Barzakh, limbo. One volume is about Barzakh and limbo, and one volume is about the heavens in paradise, Jannah, and one volume is about the inferno, An-Nar, and he describes the levels of Nar and Jahannam, and he says the last level of Jahannam, the worst place, and in Inferno, I went there, and who did I see there? I saw Muhammad and Ali. He says, I saw Muhammad and Ali in the deepest levels and ditches in the Inferno and hell. This is not something new. It was from those old times. That's what they knew about Islam. But our responsibility is to inform them as much as we could about the Prophet and Amir al-Mu'mineen and who they really were. Because they don't know. It's our responsibility to do so. They don't know how merciful the Prophet was. One of the ulama was saying that tell the people of the West about the Prophet after Fath Mecca, when he conquered Mecca after 21 years of oppression and torture and killing and confiscating their belongings. 13 years in Mecca, then 8 years in Medina, right? Until Fath al-Mecca, 8 years had passed and he was in Medina. 82 wars that they waged against the Prophet, the pagans, the kuffar. Suddenly, 2 years before he dies, he conquers Mecca, and suddenly he has the opportunity and the upper hand for revenge from people who had killed so many of them. From those who killed his uncle Hamza, and those who ripped his body apart, and the woman who ate his liver, Hind, the mother of Muawiyah, and Wahshi. But the Prophet, what does he do? One of the Muslims who was holding the banner of of Islam as they entered the city of Mecca, he said, Al-Yawm Yawmul Malhama. Today is the day of revenge. We will have revenge. We will cut your meats, your body into pieces of meat. It's Malhama. The Prophet said, take the banner from him. What is he saying? I want you to call Al-Yawm Yawmul Marhama. Today is a day of mercy. So this scholar was saying, who do you know in history other than our Prophet, who was under so much pressure and oppression and killing, abusing, and suddenly he does a revolution in his own country and city? What happens in our countries after revolutions? In many countries in the world, right? They have executions, they have the political prisoners. But the Prophet said, اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. You are free to go. Everyone is free to go. I forgive all of you. except the one who kills my uncle, who killed my uncle. Wahshi, that person, bring him to me, dead or alive. Then Wahshi, when he heard the news that the Prophet had forgiven everyone except him, he secretly goes to the Prophet and he says, I've heard that you forgive anyone that asks for forgiveness. I want you to forgive me. Then the Prophet says, I will forgive you if you don't show me your face, because if I look at you, I will remember the tragedy of my uncle and what you did to him, how you cut him into pieces. You mutilated my uncle. I don't want to see your face, but I forgive you. Go. Even these kinds of people, even Hind, they were forgiven. We don't have in history, in the history of human being from Adam till now, any character in history that was in that situation, and then he has the upper hand against those who did so much harm to him, and he forgives them. You can't find it in history, because the Prophet Muhammad was the only one that did this. Even when it came to his government, how his financial assurance and financial policies of that government was in a means that it attracted non-Muslims. The laws, the financial laws he implemented in his government about social security, it attracted the Jews. The Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq alayhi salam, he says that the Prophet, he announced 2 laws concerning social security and financial assurance, that because of these 2 laws, أسلم عامة اليهود, most of the Jews, they converted to Islam just for 2 financial laws. What was it? The Prophet announced, he said, من ترك مالا فلورثته. Whoever dies and passes away and leaves behind some wealth, it will go to his or her heir. We don't have inheritance tax like the Jews do. Our religion does not allow that. Our country, our government does not have inheritance tax. But you see inheritance tax in many countries today in the world, even the developed ones. If you die and pass away, you leave some wealth, money in your account, in your bank, it has a percentage of tax. Or when there's estate tax, you leave an estate, a house, piece of land, there's tax on that. The Prophet said, whoever leaves anything behind, it will fully go to the heir and his family. None of it shall be taken. And another law he announced was that man mata wa alayhi daynun fa ilayya wa alayhi. Whoever dies and has a debt and he cannot repay it, they shouldn't go to the family. They come to me. I will pay their debts. I will pay their loans. Don't go to the family and take whatever they have because of the father who had debts. No, they have no right. You come to me. The Imam says after these 2 laws were announced, أسلم عامة اليهود. Most of the Jews, they became Muslims because they didn't have these laws. They were afraid, they were concerned about their family's security, financial security, their social security. They were concerned. What will happen to them if they die and they have a debt? Well, usually they come and take whatever they could. Or if they leave money behind, their leaders, their countries would take an amount of that money for themselves because of for tax. So they became Muslim. And the Quran says, you know what happened after Rasulullah came to Medina and he showed his Islamic government? Because in the time of Mecca, the Prophet, 13 years in Mecca, how many people converted to Islam They say about 200. But when he came to Medina, in those 10 years, thousands entered the religion of Islam willingly. Why? Because they saw a practical government and country who will provide their benefits. Because the Prophet said, جِئْتُكُمْ بِخَيْرِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. What I have brought for you, this cause, is better for your akhirah, your hereafter, the afterlife, and your dunya. خَيْرِ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. It's the best system you could find in this world. No system will come after it better than my system. No ideology will provide you the benefits of this dunya, this world, better than mine. That is why they converted to Islam when seeing it. Because before Mecca, it was only, there was no government established. The Quran says, in that time, you see that the people, they enter in the religion of Islam in groups. وَيَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. Because why shouldn't they become Muslim? It gives them dunya and akhirah. And we have a hadith that says a time will come, you will find Muslims يَخْرُجُونَ مِن دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. You find Muslims, they get out of the deen of Islam, groups. They become murtad. They run away from Islam in groups. Why? Because they don't see the Islam that the Prophet brought. They don't see that. It's natural. They want good lives. They want better lives. If they see you're providing that life for them, they enter the religion. If you see you don't. You're taking it hard on them. This is not what they're looking for. They come out. They leave the religion. So, the religion, it's like today when you see Muslims coming to Western countries. They migrate to Western countries to live in that better society, a better life, a better system that provides for them a better life. It was in reverse in the time of the Prophet. They were coming into our country, in our belief, in our system. They wanted what we had, but now we go to other countries. We don't have what the Prophet had. And the Prophet was under war after war and war after war. 82 wars waged against the Prophet. And he provides. I don't know how, but he did. Well, he's the Prophet and he is infallible. He has the knowledge that we don't have today, right? It's not. I think there's not much we could do today to provide that. There is some things we could do, and there are some things we can't. It's not an excuse. We have to try our best because we in most Islamic countries don't have these laws. These same laws I mentioned. Most Islamic countries, they don't have them. You see the government of Amir al-Mu'mineen, 4.5 years, 3 wars were waged against him. And between those wars, you have Muawiyah attacking the cities of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you also see that he provides for his people in a way that he says, there shall be no beggars and poor in my city, in my country. A country, they say, that was about 50 countries today. The country that Amir al-Mu'mineen ruled in that time, it was approximately, it consisted of the 50 countries today of Islam. 50 countries. And he would see a beggar in the street and say, what is this I'm seeing? They said, oh, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he's a Christian. We don't have financial assurance for Christians. We don't give them money after retirement. He says, how dare you not give him? He has worked for you when he was young and now you leave him be and beg in the street. You have to give him just the same you give to the Muslims. He cannot tolerate to see one poor man in a country that is as big as 50 countries today, and 3 wars are waged on him, and attack after attack by Muawiyah, but he can't see one poor man in the street. So, Amir al-Mu'mineen is the government of Ali ibn Abi Talib. That is something that people don't know, how a prophet was ruling, how Amir al-Mu'mineen, his justice, the idala of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the freedom of speech of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was a governor who had no political prisoners at all. The opposition, they were free. They would come and say to the Imam that in front of him that you are a kafir, you are a pagan, the Khawarij. And they were free until they harmed. The Imam said, they are free, and they shall not be harmed until they harm someone. Until they shed blood, they can say whatever they want. And subhanallah, they had, unlike when we talked about Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad, how he had the carrot and stick strategy with the people of Kufa. He threatened them that he would cut off their salaries, whoever joins Muslim ibn Aqil, but Amir al-Mu'mineen doesn't cut anyone's salary and doesn't threaten them. That's why they have so much courage to come and protest and say whatever they want and cause mischief, because they know he won't cut their salaries, he won't threaten them. They have that freedom, and we don't have that in many countries in the world. You don't have that freedom of speech that Ali ibn Abi Talib used to give people. Because the former caliphs, they had the stick, the whip. They feared him so much, they couldn't move their toes in front of him, because the whip was always there. And no one had dared to do anything other than what he said, he demanded. But Imam Ali, he demands and he asks and he calls out, but no one responds, because he doesn't use force on them. He is merciful. And they said what? That, Ali ibn Abi Talib doesn't know policy, doesn't have the knowledge to rule a country. He's weak. The Imam, you know what he said? He said, no, Allah, I know I'm more knowledgeable than Muawiyah is. لو شئت لقومتكم بسيفي وصوتي ولكن هيهات أن أصلحكم بفساد نفسي. He said, I know how to straighten you out with my whip and with my sword. I know how to make you right and correct you, but not at the expense of my own soul. But not at my own expense. I will not do that. I could do it like the others would do. So they would do things that you won't see in today's governments, in today's countries. The freedom they had was given to them. You don't see that in many countries. Freedom of speech. The opposition are free. They say what they want. It was only when they killed innocent people that the war of Nahrawan, it began. So, brothers and sisters, we have a responsibility. My time is up, and we have to shorten it today. And we have much to talk about, but our responsibility in these countries is to introduce and show and resist the Islamophobia that is spread by the media. We have duties upon our shoulders, because first of all, we have to introduce who the Prophet was and who Amir al-Mu'mineen was, and how they treated their people, even the opposition, how they were treated. Then we have to try to guide them as much as we could, right? And the Imam, the Prophet says to Amir al-Mu'mineen when he sent him to Yemen, he said, that يا علي لئن يهدي الله بك عبدا من عباده خير لك مما طلعت عليه الشمس. Oh Ali, if Allah guides anyone through you, you know, it would be better for you than having all the world, all the wealth and power of the world. If you had that, you know what's better than that? To guide one person of Allah's servants to the right path, that it would be better for you. It's better for your akhirah and your dunya. So we have to try as much as we could, and may Allah help us guide ourselves and our family first. Try to stay on the right path. That is the priority. We, our family and our children, we have to think about them first. Then think about our neighbors and our friends and other people. ببركة الصلوات على محمد وآل محمد. On a night like tonight, after 3 days, the body of Imam Hussein and his companions were left on the sand dune of Karbala, and no one had buried them. No one had put kafan on their bodies. They were left until the tribe of Bani Asad came after 3 days, and they saw these bodies cut into pieces. Bodies with no heads on them to recognize. How could they bury these bodies which they don't recognize? Who is the enemy and who is the friend? So they were confused and thinking, what should they do when they saw a man coming from towards Kufa? The man, who is he? He is Imam al-Sajjad alayhi salam. He comes to Karbala, and they see this man coming, and when he approaches a certain body, one of the bodies, the body of his father, Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, he throws himself on the body of his father, and he starts to cry and cry and cry. And then he turns to Bani Asad and says, what are you doing here in this land? They say, we have come to bury the bodies and the body of Hussein ibn Ali, but we cannot distinguish and recognize which one he is. They don't have heads on their bodies, their heads are severed. How can we know which one is Hussein? The Imam cries and says, I will tell you who they are, and I will tell you by their names. So the Imam shows them where they have to dig and where they have to bury the bodies, and who these bodies belong, and who is who. And when they help the Imam bury the bodies, the Imam comes to the body of his father, Abi Abdullah, and they want to help him. He says, no, don't. I have to do this by my own. إِنَّ مَعِي مَنْ يُعِينُنِي. I have help, and there are those who will help me do this. But he says, I ask you for a bariya, a hasir, a mat. Why does the Imam want a mat and a hasir? Because his father's body was cut into pieces, and he couldn't bring his father's body into the grave. So he asked for a mat, a hasira, to put his father's body on the mat, and then descended into the grave. When he goes into the grave, Bani Asad come and they look inside. What do they see? They see that Imam al-Sajjad, he has put his cheek on the severed veins of his father's neck, and he's crying, and he's saying, Bismillah wa billah wa fi sabilillah wa ala millati rasulillah, hada ma wa'ada Allah wa rasulah. Allah and his Prophet has promised this. They knew this would happen. Then he said, طوبى لأرض تضمنت جسدك الشريف. Oh Father, how great is the land that your body is buried in. Then he said, "Ya Father, أما الدنيا فبعدك مظلمة. This dunya is dark after you. وأما الآخرة بنور وجهك مشرقة. And the afterlife is illuminated with your light. أما الحزن فسرمد. But my sorrow is forever, O Father." Then the Imam came out of the grave, and he buried Imam Hussein. Then with his finger he wrote on the grave, "Who does this grave belong to?" How will he describe his father? Will he say this is the grave of Hussein? No, he says this is the grave of the one who was killed thirsty and alone. هذا قبر الحسين بن علي الذي قتلوه عطشانا غريبا. Then he asks Bani Asad, "Oh Bani Asad, have you buried all the companions?" They say, "We have, but there is a body by the Furat, by the river. We wanted to bury it, but it was cut into pieces. We couldn't bury that body. What should we do?" So the Imam comes with them. He stands on the body of Abu al-Fadl and he says, "Ya على الدنيا بعدك العفا يا قمر بني هاشم." They say when Allama Bahr al-Ulum went to see the grave of Abu al-Fadl under the ground, they saw the grave was very small. They asked Allama Bahr al-Ulum, they say Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas was tall and huge. How is it his grave is small? He replied, because they cut him into pieces. فَقَطَّعُوهُ بِسُيُوفِهِمْ إربان. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلب والعاقبة للمتقين. This is the last night in Layl al-Akhirah. We will recite this ayah, this verse, in order for Allah to grant us our hawaij and our wishes. أما يجيب المضطر أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء أما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء. Ya Allah, O Allah, accept from us what little we have done for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and give us tawfiq to do more insha'Allah. O Allah, we ask you to keep us on the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam and to guide our family and our children and keep them on the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. Allahumma ajjil li waliyika al-faraj واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والممتثلين لأوامره. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.